Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. Welcome to this session where we will continue with our verses, and I would like to take us through this journey of the verses to refresh our minds. And it's said that in the beginning, there was, or there is, one undifferentiated existence, which is limitless. And this existence happens to enjoy a capacity to manifest a universe. And this capacity, when it manifests a universe, or before it manifests a universe that is being experienced right now, it goes through a process. And this process is to really just to pacify our minds, because our minds desire the details. And so if you just say that this capacity manifests the universe, you're just going to say then how. And so the descriptions tell us how. And so they say that this capacity has three qualities, or it by its manifestation, we can then assign three qualities to it. This capacity, not that it has three qualities, but this capacity, Maya, is just knowledge and power in potential. And this knowledge and power, to relate with it somewhat in a more specific manner, we assign Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. And so it's said that out of these three, the five elements, which are the building blocks for the universe that is to come, they are the building blocks. And since these three gunas, they inhere in everything that comes out of this capacity, this means that the five elements will also be inhered with these three qualities. And so the sattvic portion of these five elements will produce your five perception organs. And by them coming together, all of the sattvic portions of the five elements, they will produce our inner instrument, which is capable of receiving and conglomerating all of the data that your senses capture into one place. And that one place was called the Antahkarana, the inner instrument. Another name for this is the subtle body, but in the Tattva Bodha case, it used a different name. It called it the Antahkarana. And then it said the Rajas aspect of the five elements. If you take the Rajas aspect of each of the five elements, then you will produce capacity to grasp, to move, to say something, to evacuate, to procreate. So all of these capacities were a product of, or are enabled by, the Rajasic aspect of the five elements. Now, if you add all of the Rajasic aspects together, so Rajas of space, Rajas of Vayu, Rajas of Agni, Rajas of, right, of Prithvi and Jala, all of them, they create the five pranas. And these five pranas then enable you to really connect the inner instrument and the physical body that is yet to come. So the five pranas, in a sense, serve as an intermediary that connect your physical body and your subtle mind. You need some intermediary that's able to sort of, because that's why they say, if you think it, you're able to produce intense amounts of energy in your physical body if you think it. So this means by thinking it, I'm able to influence my prana, and my prana is going to then influence my body. So now there's going to be a relationship between the inner instrument, between the five pranas, and the physical body, which is yet to come. Now, the physical body, how does it come? Well, you have to take the last aspect, which is the tamaguna portion of the five elements. And by them going through a process, which is called panchikarana, which means they are now going to become physical. How do they become physical? We said that every element, the space element, gives up 50% of its tamaguna, and the other 50% gets filled up by 12.5% of tamaguna of air, 12.5% tamaguna of fire, 12.5% tamaguna of water, and 12.5% tamaguna of earth. And thereby, by having 50% of its own tamaguna and the other 50% tamaguna of all of the other four, that is what's called now panchikarana. It has now transferred its state from subtle, from a mere thought, subtle, into a physical fire that you can feel and experience as heat rays, as when you exercise and there is heat in the body, as a heater being turned on, as physical fire, as molten lava, as anything that has a force of that's enabling to change the landscape. Therefore, this fire has a huge impact on the world by putting together different rocks, combining them under high pressure, and then they evaporate, and they're able to, then the water is able to fall down. So therefore, from the heat, because of the heat, it's able to evaporate these gases, and from the gases they can fall back down to earth in the form of condensed water. And so from the fire comes the water. And also the sun is also just really two atoms combined together, which is hydrogen and helium, and they are constantly interacting with high amount of fission, nuclear fission. And so the sun is basically just like atomic bombs constantly going off. So all you're experiencing, on the beach when you're having a great time and getting your tan, you're actually getting a tan because there are nuclear explosions happening a couple of millions of kilometers away. And so because we don't see this, we take this for granted. But I tell you, if you ever seen images of the sun under like Google or something, or a video, it's just majestic. It's a sight to see. You really come to appreciate the God in this magnificent thing, because and the sun has been worshipped for thousands of years by all cultures. It's been shining, and nobody complains. In fact, we all need the sun. No matter how much you complain, you still need the sun. They give us nutrition, they give life to plants, and the plants give different nutritional value. And because of the sun, we're able to have this this ecosystem that supports life forms. And one of those life forms is not just now the physical world, which has come from the 5 elements, tamaguna portion, but also what else has come is the living entity, which is sculpted by a certain intelligence. And to operate in this world, this entity is made with 3 bodies, and these 3 bodies are the causal body. So this is the inclinations with which the entity comes into the world. It is sculpted or enabled by the subtler body, the inner instrument, which allows it to input the data from the world, which it has now been put on, and make certain inferences and perceptions and decisions, and have certain ability to ask itself, what do I want to do with this environment in which I have been put on, with the inclinations that I have been given. So therefore, it's given another order, which we call free will, the ability to exercise your freedom to ask, what do I want to do with the information that is or has been presented to me. And therefore, by being given this order, which is also this capacity, this knowledge and capacity coming in the form of dharma. So this means when this being, who is now made of these 3 bodies, looks at themselves and says, do I want to hurt myself? The instant answer is no. Do I want you to hurt me? The instant answer is no. This being doesn't have to learn this. They don't have to read it. They automatically know, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to hurt myself. I want to protect myself, preserve my life form. And I also want to preserve, I don't want you to inflict any pain on me. And you also have the exact same knowledge. And this knowledge is another order, as we said, is given so that the being which is put on earth can have some general orientation how to navigate itself with these proclivities, inclinations, and tendencies that it has been given through its causal body. And by doing so, though experiencing the pressures of those inclinations, it can, despite them, make a choice to do something different next time around, even though the pressure of those inclinations are going to cause it to think how it's thought before, are going to cause it to walk in the same place where it's walked before, are going to cause it to communicate in the same way it's communicated before. Nevertheless, being given this order, it's able to slowly evolve its status from a mere worm to, a monkey, to a little bit more kind of, more social creature, into a more, sophisticated creature that's able to now use one more capacity, which is the ability to speak. So it had to wait a couple of thousands of years to exercise its capacity to speak from mere gestures and pointing what I want into transferring that speech into the most sophisticated physical instrument made by Tamaguna of the 5 elements into the throat, so that the throat can generate sounds that are now understood by the other fella, and therefore they're able to together start to create agriculture and cultivate and make crops and save for winter, and therefore more time is allowed for them to store food, and therefore more time is allowed for them to learn and ask what is the nature of this universe. So slowly they start to exercise more of these capacities, and because everyone contributes into the field of causes and effects, there's a feedback system, and by this feedback system you're always able to build upon what you have observed or what someone else has done. And therefore throughout history we can see that every civilization ends up building upon what some other civilization has done before us. And so there's no ending to this. Who would have thought that we would have had an AI explosion only 2 years ago? It was non-existent, and then it's suddenly November 2022, if I'm correct, it has just exploded from OpenAI, and then the whole thing has now changed. And they said that 4.4 trillion economic growth, GDP, will increase worldwide because of all of the work and automation that has been contributed by AI. And so there's just no ending to this. And now Elon Musk is designing robots. You've seen that probably, where he wants to replace the workers with these intelligent robots. So this is just going on. But here's the important part, getting back to the verse. When this individual who is in this world made of these 3 bodies, because these 3 bodies are made out of the one substance that from which everything is made of. So every manifestation comes from one substance, and this substance is consciousness. That is why this individual, these 3 bodies, are conscious, because they are made from a substance which is consciousness itself. So you can't help yourself but to be conscious, because there is only consciousness from which whose power apparently creates these forms which look like they're now different from other forms. So this individual, being or enabled and constructed through these 3 bodies put together, is made conscious, and then looks at the world and experiences oneself as I am. Over here, I'm not over there. You're over there. I am over here. But in actuality, when they say I am, that same I am is also the I am that everyone else is saying on the other side of the world, that people have been saying since time immemorial, since on my map here, since 2,000, 4,000, 16,000 years ago, the same I am that people will be saying another 35,000 years from now. In other words, I know that I am is constantly true in everyone's experience, but what is changing despite that or amidst that is I know that I am this or that, or happy or joyful or smart or intelligent or in trouble or free, right? So these descriptions that are imputed onto I know that I am is what we call Maya Upadi, this projection of Maya power. But amongst this Maya Upadi, this conscious individual who thinks is confined to this instrument is also blocked certain information through Maya's avarana shakti, the veiling power. And therefore, when they're looking at this world, I know that I am, but I don't know what is the nature of this I that is known to be all the time, unbroken stream of consciousness. And therefore, because consciousness and upadhi are always as though entwined, what happens innocently is we impute the upadhi onto this amness that is ever true and ever constant and ever unbroken. We said that you cannot be this upadhi if you were the body, if consciousness was the body, then consciousness would age. Now, what does that look like? What does aging consciousness look like, right? If you were aging, if consciousness was aging, then you would not be able to identify yourself as a youthful one because you would be consciousness itself. You would be an old person, right? The totality of you would be an old person. So if I say to you, were you ever a young person? You would say, no, I was always like this. But nobody says that. So this means the fact that I can identify that I am free of this, this person, old person, and this young person implies that I'm neither intrinsically, I don't have the intrinsic quality of youthfulness, nor do I have the intrinsic quality of old person. That's how I'm able to identify both of them. And we also said you cannot be the mind, because if you were the mind, I will talk about why you cannot be the mind, but I want you to think about it so far. What would be the logical problem if you say that consciousness was the mind? Think about that, because I want to get back to the verse. So now what the verse is saying is that when this jiva, being given this form, not knowing its nature, what happens is it makes a mistake. And then the verse that we spoke about last week, and I haven't read it, which is I'm going to read it now. It says, Sthula Sharira Abhimani Jivanamakam Brahma Pratibimbam. So who is Atma? Atma is the one who identifies with the Sthula Sharira. So Atma, who mistakes itself as the Sthula Sharira, as the physical body, of course, and the subtle body, the inner instrument, and the causal body, all of its inclinations and habits and so on. That one who makes a mistake, because of Maya's avarana shakti, right, the veiling power, that one is called a jiva. I know Leo asked me this question, so is this answered now? What is a jiva? So a jiva just doesn't know, it thinks I am this much, that's all, I am this much. So I, which is actually everywhere, like space, I, right, which is everywhere, but I am now from this standpoint, how much am I? Oh, I am this much, right? I am inside the cup, that much I am. So that one who takes itself as that much is called a jiva. And then it says another name for jiva is Brahma Pratibimba. So again, this pratibimba is reflection. So again, it is consciousness, the one reality from which everything comes, obtaining in the mind, right? And when it obtains in the mind, it says, I am this much. I am my thoughts. I am the, and what thoughts are these? They're just upadhis. They're just projections by Maya, constantly projecting a new thought. But when there's no thought, what's still there? I know that I am. So look at this. I know that I am is constant. All of that. If there's one constant in this entire world, it is I know that I am. But if there is one non-constant, in fact, not one, but many non-constants, it is anything other than I know that I am. So for example, right now, I know that I'm happy. But then later, 5 minutes later, I know that I am impatient. So the happy is gone. Impatient is also going to be gone. But I know that I was there during happiness. And I know that I am self-revealing I during impatience. So there's one invariable factor, which is the final reality called Brahman. So Brahman Pratibimba, common word, reflected consciousness. So look at this. All it wants to say is, it uses an example, and Adi Shankara used to use this example. Now today, what I've observed, what Swami Dayananda has observed, what Nima has observed, we've all observed the same phenomena. When we do mention this reflected consciousness, it unfortunately ends up confusing more than it ends up clarifying things, which is why I don't use it. I will use this as though confinement rather than reflected consciousness. So the idea is you have what they call reflected consciousness and original consciousness. So the moment you say reflected consciousness, you have to now add one more word, original consciousness, right? Because you can't stay at the reflected. But the moment you add these two, the mind is forced to now say, oh, so there's two types of consciousnesses, right? That's the problem. But it doesn't intend to do that. The example actually doesn't intend to do that. All it wants to do is show you something like this. Suppose you have a drop of water, like a drop of water on a piece of wood, and you have 5 drops of water, very tiny drops of water, and right next to it, suppose it's the ocean. So 5 drops of water are on a rock, and there is a big ocean of water, and it's a cloudless day, and the sun is shining, and so you can see the beauty, the utter beauty of the ocean. Because if you look at the ocean, right, from the top, you just see such amazing blueness, and it's so kind of it just pulls you in. But if you look at these 5 little drops, he's like, yeah, what's this? This is just 5 little drops there. But if you look deeper, the 5 drops are all, right, they're illumined by the one sun. They get their glow, they get their glory. However small their glory is, they still get their glory because of the one sun. And the ocean, it's not like the sun is trying to make the ocean more beautiful. It's not doing that. It's just innocently being itself. But because the ocean is much bigger, it reveals more of its beauty. So therefore, both the ocean and the 5 drops of water, they both depend on something to reveal their differences, to reveal their relative beauty, total beauty, relative intelligence, total intelligence, relative power, total power, because of this one sun. So the idea is now, when the sun shines on these 5 drops, they are, right, they're what? Reflecting the sun. They're reflecting it. So we say that, so the sun is being reflected. So what happens is that little drop takes itself, including the light that's shining onto its content. Suppose it's sort of a dirty drop of water, which represents a kind of a little bit of a convoluted mind, a cuckoo mind. And the sun is shining on a cuckoo drop of water, and the drop of water takes itself and says, I am this much. But so what is that I am referring to? It's referring to the reflected consciousness. It's referring to the reflected light. It's actually original light, but it's referring to that light which is mixed up with the dirt of the drop. And so that mixed up light with the drop is called a reflected light. So in that same way, when you say reflected consciousness, the example, all it wants to show is it is original consciousness, as though mixed in with all of your thoughts, all of your proclivities, all of your ups and downs and your moods and the person that you are. And so what it says is the jiva is the one who takes reflected consciousness to be true. A better name for the reflected consciousness is the I sense. So it takes the I sense to be true, whereas the real nature of the individual is the invariable presence, I know that I am. No matter what changes, no matter whether the water is clean, whether it's pure, I always know that I am.
I just wondered, is it, I mean, I've often heard it like saying being reflected like a mirror, and you have a dirty mirror or you have a clean mirror, so that it changes the reflection. Is this the same as that when you compare the ocean and the drops of water?
Yeah, it's another metaphor. It's an image, first of all. It does force us to imagine light, and it does force us to sort of, that's why you can't use it for consciousness, because consciousness you cannot hold in your mind as an image. But yes, so the idea is you have two mirrors. We'll call this mirror A and we'll call this mirror B. And this mirror is very clean. Mirror A is clean and mirror B is unclean. But there's one light source giving them it's one light source is illumining their state. This state of mirror, the clean one, is going to reflect more purity, more beauty, more nature of that light than this dirty mirror will. So this dirty mirror will say, oh, look at me, you know, I am all dirty and I've got problems and, you know, I've got low self-esteem and I'm small and nobody likes me and, you know, I'm not loved and, you know, and I'm not good enough. But this mirror doesn't have any of that dust. And therefore, it doesn't have a chance to say all of those things because it's cleaned up that dust. But what they're both enjoying is the one self-revealing, the one light, which is enabling both mirrors to recognize their state of mirrorness, their state of mind. Okay, so it's always this mirror, one light. Two types of, one is big water, one is small water, one sun. That's the idea between reflected consciousness and original consciousness. Yeah. And yeah, you would be really surprised, you know, when I get emails, and it's really kind of frustrating when people email me and they always bring so much unnecessary drama about this because they heard it from somewhere else. I get it. It's taught a lot. And so then I have to sort of, I don't know who's their teacher, first of all. So, and at the same time, if I reject their email, then they say, what? Oh, you know, he doesn't answer emails. So it's a really tough spot to be in, right? No, you can't get out of it. If you answer, right, it's, first of all, are you my student or is someone else's? Why don't you ask your teacher? If I don't answer, they criticize. So it's a really tough spot to be in. But besides the point, I've noticed, even Dayananda, who has taught so many students in his time, he specifically noticed that it forces the mind to imagine like there's a pure consciousness, an original consciousness, and a dirty, or not a dirty, but a reflected consciousness. Now, that's not the intention of the example, but it ends up doing that anyway for most people.
When you defined Jiva, it seems that Jiva is nothing. It is just a thought. It's mithya. It has no separate existence, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also seems that this is not temporary. It seems like a permanent phenomenon.
Sure. Okay. So Mina is asking, she wants to get some clarification on the definition of a jiva. And have I read the full definition of a jiva? Okay. So Maya Upadi generates forms, just like a dream, right? Your one mind generates a world and it generates characters. Both the world and the characters, they're just 5 elements. Just a different composition of the 5 elements. Both of them are projection of the mind. So whether you look at the world, 5 elements, whether you look at the jiva, 5 elements. The only difference is the jiva has one more special kind of sattva and rajas aspect of those 5 elements, which gives it a subtle body. So it's able to say, I am. Right? It's able to become self-aware of its own, its own self as a person, whoever it thinks it is, and the world. Otherwise, they're just projections of Vikshepa Shakti, and that jiva is now covered with certain information, and therefore it takes itself innocently to be these 3 bodies.
So, by way of constitution of Panch Pranas, organs of action, and sense knowledge senses, everyone is same, right? All human beings are same. But then we also talk about that this person has sattva dominance or the other one has rajas dominance. So where is this difference comes from?
Got it. The question is, Meena is bringing a different model. Tattva Bodha is not quite mentioning the model that Meena is bringing in. So in another model, we say that everything is infused with different gunas, and it is true because these gunas they sort of not sort of, but they actually define the individual characteristics of the type of mind you have, of the type of body you have. So if you look at 10 people and you say they have different bodies, one is more sort of heavier and bulkier, one's more athletic, and you say, so there's some differences there. And you see this body's like more energized, more active, just kind of like those athletic, bodies, just energized. And the other one's more kind of sit down on a computer and eat pizzas and more heavier, right, type of body. So, and it's not just a one-off. It's generally you have that kind of body, or you'd have that kind of a mind. Some minds are more inquisitive, more curious. Other minds are more, give me something to do. Other minds are more, not only do in terms of, spiritual activity, but let me do something around the house. Whenever I look outside here, these neighbors are constantly fixing and renovating their houses. It's like there's so much work to do around the house, even though you just need a roof over your head. So, and this is very strange for me, but the idea is they have a very different composition that's causing their orientations to make them think about the world different and do different things. So when we talk about gunas, they are that which makes up your orientation. They're like the ingredients that make up your orientation. Or you can also say the other way around. By looking at someone's orientations, you say, okay, so they're inquisitive, they're not sleepy, they're just energized. And by that, I can say they have more sattva guna, more raja guna, and less tamaguna. So you can go either way. So the point is, these gunas, they are the ingredients which makes up endless differences in this universe, just like colors, right? 3 colors, from them you can create endless differences. Or you can go the other way around and you can observe these endless differences, and then you say, so we can more or less create 3 categories to explain Maya. So now we're going to give Maya 3 more words just to be able to relate to Maya a little bit better. And so therefore we say sattva, rajas, and tama. So either way you can play with this. I know Vig. The point is, it's a model to help you kind of fill in the blanks. So you don't just look at the world and say, how do I explain these differences? This Maya is too general. Can you specify Maya? Can you get more detailed? Okay, we'll give you sattva, rajas, and tamas. If you're not happy with sattva, rajas, and tamas, we've got 5 elements for you, right? And so you're not happy with 5 elements? Wow, we've got the periodic table of elements for you.
Just following on the question about why the differences, would that come back to our...
Why did what?
The differences, why we have different bodies and stuff. Would that come back to something that was talked about earlier about our punyam and papams and how that would go into the integration or the pancha whatever that arrives at?
Of course. Yeah, I've got it. So the question, thank you, Vig. So the question is extending onto Mina's question. How do we account for differences? I gave several models, the 5-element model, and there is the guna model. And now we have one more model, which is punya and papam. This is again to let us know, how do we account for me being given this body and you being given that body? Now these gunas will be spoken of in the last verses, which will be covered next week, whereby I will define how these gunas, not gunas, but these karmas, specifically give you this body. And we'll show you some demonstrations, so it doesn't sound like dogma, because when it comes to prarabdha, agami, and sanchita, then it sort of tends to sound like a little bit dogmatic unless I bring in some observable things that you can relate with. And this I intend to do next week. Otherwise, the answer is yes. Specifically, what accounts for difference when it's relative to the body and the orientations of your mind, it is 100% your sanchita karma, which will be explained next week. By natural ignorance of the self, why natural ignorance? Because Maya, from Maya comes all things, and Maya has two powers, projecting and veiling. So whatever is projected is also veiled. This is why everyone comes with this sense of Ishwaram bhinatvena janati. Everyone comes with a natural notion that Ishwara is different from Jiva. Janati. I know that Ishwara is different from Jiva. And what does this do? It creates institutions, ashrams, it creates movements around the world. Millions of dollars get spent into this. These fellas are worshipped. They are somebody, Advaitins, we're like a little small group here and nobody in comparison. So it's so powerful, this ignorance between Jiva and Ishwara, that it's able to drive civilizations which orient an entire religion on this one single idea that Jiva is different from Ishwara, and therefore Jiva needs to propitiate Ishwara. He's the governor. I'm a small person, and I need to connect with him somewhere, at some place, at some time. And why does this happen? Because of avidya upadhi, Atma, Jiva, iti uchyate. So why does Atma take itself as the three bodies? Because of avidya upadhi. Now, when it says avidya means ignorance, upadhi means superimposition, projection. Why does this happen? Because I do not know that I am much more than this person. Therefore, when I come into this world, when Maya projects my body, which it has been doing since time immemorial. Last life, by the way, there was no I. What are you talking about? It was some different person, right? So what was there? Awareness? Of course, awareness was there. Awareness is everywhere. So there's no question of saying I was there last life. What is the I referring to in this case? I sense. But we describe the I sense to be constantly changing based on what the data, the buddhi is sending, the chittam is sending, and the manas is sending. My I sense is completely different between now and now. If my I sense is even different in 2 seconds, what to say about me being there at some other time? This is crazy, right? And same thing in the future, same thing next life. There's no question of saying, oh, I will be there next life. It's going to be a totally different person, but that person is going to be enjoying a life coming with certain inclinations, certain proclivities, certain body, certain orientations, certain attractions because of what a person called Andre has done in this life. Otherwise, there's no connection between Andre and Raj in the next life or whatever his name will be, right? There's no connection. The only connection is the same awareness because of which both Andre is and because of which Raj is. Okay, so avidya upadhi, in short, just means 3 bodies. 3 bodies which are pervaded by consciousness, which gives the sense of I am, and that's all that I am. That's avidya upadhi. Okay, and then we also have maya upadhi, san ishvara iti uchyate. So with Maya, so Brahman supporting Maya, or Brahman with Maya Upadhi activated, that is called Ishvara. Therefore, we have 2 Upadhis. Look at this. We have one Jiva Upadhi and we have Maya Upadhi, which is called Ishvara. And Evam Upadhi Bedat Jiveshvara Beda Drishtihi. Due to this Upadhi difference, what happens? Jiva Ishvara Beda Drishtihi. The perception between Jiva and Ishvara is cognized because of 2 different Upadhis. One is the total Upadhi called Ishvara, and one's a small Upadhi called Jiva. Because of these 2 Upadhis, which are really just coming out of Maya, because of these 2 Upadhis, I mistakenly take myself as a small individual and everything else as bigger than me, who then I have to, kind of work my way through. And what happens then? Yavat paryantam tishtati, As long as this ignorance remains, tavat pariyantam janma samsara nivartate. Samsara does not go away, because I am looking at myself as a very small thing, and in other words, as long as you are looking or perceiving one reality as two different things, who then looks at things in this world, big things, shiny things, amazing things, smart things, popular things, celebrities, as long as I see myself different from everything else, I will want to fulfill myself through action. Action is going to give me consequences, karma pala. Karma pala is what produces a new body, and therefore this cycle keeps going and going and going. Why? Because you're looking at one reality as two different things. Someone's going to throw an objection. They're going to say, Nanu sahamkarasya inchidnyasya. Okay, I'll read this later. So objection, how dare you say that the Jiva and Ishvara are the same? How can this be? This is blasphemy. Jiva is little bit of knowledge. It has an eye sense. It's limited. It's just knows that much. And Ishvara is a total being. It's that from which the whole universe comes from, that sustains all laws and has all these objects interacting in these laws, and sustains all objects, including every jiva, for eons. And you're saying that Jiva and Ishvara are the same. What is wrong with you? Close book, log off, and go. There's a story of Parikshit, he did something nasty, right? And he was given 7 days to live. And he panicked. So he says, what do I want to do with my 7 days left? And he found a popular guru called Sanat Kumara. And he says, I only have 7 days to live. I desperately need your help to help me attain moksha. And Sanat Kumara, that's the teacher, says, oh, how lucky are you? I'm wise, but I don't even know if I'm going to die next day. And here you are, at least you're going to die in 7 days. So even a wise person doesn't know more than tomorrow. You can't even tell more than tomorrow. And this fella is now saying that Ishvara and this little individual are equated? How is this possible? And the reason is because we said that duality is so natural that it's going to bring certain kind of objections. And there are several. For example, in yoga nirvikalpa samadhi, right? There is this nirvikalpa samadhi, which is Advaita. And then when you come back, you say, oh, no, this is all Advaita here. This is all Advaita. I'm going to go back to Advaita. Let me go back and meditate. You see this? They got two states. One is Advaita state and one is Dvaita state. That's still Dvaita. It's so ingrained even for a yogic person. Or they will say, how do you know that how do you know there's duality here? I say to someone, well, because the scriptures tell. The scriptures tell you that there's duality? The scriptures don't need to tell you that. Every single person by birth knows there's duality here. Why do you need a book this big to tell you that you are different from Ishvara? So, right, it's kind of a funny argument. Or and there's a story, and there was a Advaita guru who was giving a lesson, and he said to his student, you are Narayana. And the student was a beginner. He says, I'm not Narayana, I'm not the Lord. How can you call me the Lord? No, you're Narayana, says the Advaita guru. And this fella just couldn't handle it. So he gets up and he walks away, and he finds a Advaita guru. The Advaita, he says to him, this Advaita guru told me I'm Narayana. And Advaita guru says, no, of course you're not Narayana. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You are a small being, and come with me 13 years under my tutoring. I will give you the reality. And so he spent 13 years learning under this fella, all about how you are different from everything and the Lord is big. So finally, After 13 years, this fella had long hair, and it was time to cut his hair. But he was very educated now. He was a full education about Dvaita. So first thing he went is he found a barber. And so he says, hey, barber, can you give me a haircut? I need to kind of polish myself up so I can start attracting some students. And he sat down, and the barber started to, take his beard off and cut his hair and so on. And he did such a good job that the barber's name was Murari, I think, Murari or whatever. Murari did such a good job that when he showed him the mirror to this sadhu now, who was educated fella, with 13 years, remember, he was just blown away. He was like, oh my God, you did such a good job, Murari. You are Narayana. This is amazing. And he says, whoa, hey, I'm just a barber. Don't call me Narayana. No, you don't understand. You've taken like 20 years of my life. I just look so glorious and shining. Oh, you're Narayana to be able to do this to my face. And this guy got so angry. Stop calling me Narayana. I'm not Narayana, says the barber. And this guy kept on just saying, no, you are Narayana, only Narayana, like only God can do this to me. And finally, the barber said, okay, it was not a friend inside. Tell the sadhu, I'm not Narayana. And so this fella says, no, look, this is just ordinary barber. He's not Narayana, trust me. And sadhu sort of bought that idea. So sadhu goes out and he goes to have a bath by the Ganga River. Now, by the Ganga River, he spots approaching this kind of a familiar figure, and he discovers that there's an Advaita guru coming that he met 13 years ago, and he walks up to the Advaita guru and says, "Teach me." And the Advaita guru says, "Why? What's the sudden change? You're totally changed now. You've got training, and why do you want me to teach you?" Because I just went to the barber, an uneducated man, and he knows that he's not Narayana. And I just spent 13 years learning that I'm not Narayana. Something went wrong. Teach me what you have to teach me. And so the Advaita guru, no problem. Come over and I will show you that you are Narayana. You understand? You don't need to be taught 13 years to know that you are not the Lord. Everyone knows that already. That's how strong this need for, I am a small person. And in Vishishta Dvaita, we have Tasya Tvam Asi. You are of him. Okay, very cute. Sounds very nice. But there is also one more step they have to address. They missed one more reality. Therefore, you are of him. You are not of him. Your truth and his truth is one and the same. This is the understanding. And then we have some Dvaitins who look at in Chandogya Upanishad, they say, Atat Atma Dat Tvam Asi. Look at this is Sandhi. Now, those of us who know Sandhi, very interesting. So it says Atma Dat Tvam Asi. So if you break that apart, you have Atma Tat Tvam Asi. So you know that if you combine the A and the T, you have D. So Atma Dat Tvam Asi. But the Dvaitin looks at this and goes Atma Atat Tvam Asi. So in other words, Atma is not that. Atma is not that. Now, why would you write Atma is not that 9 times? Think about it. So even a mind that is looking through this Dvaita will look at Sandhi, Sanskrit Sandhi, and it will break it apart to suit its already predefined notions. Now it goes even further. What do you mean you are that? Because it says in the verse, how can you say that you, Tvam, are Tat Tvam Asi? So this is the argument. The argument is regarding this Mahavakya. Because if you say that sounds away. That's not here. That's over there. So that's problem number 1. And if you say you, the Tvam, you can mean anything. If I say you are hungry, then what's the you referring to? Prana. If I say you are smart, what's the you referring to? Buddhi. If I say you are emotional, what's the you referring to? Manas. So we got 2 problems. Tvam can mean anything, you can mean anything, and tat, that can mean anything also. And it implies it's over there and not here. So this is the objection that's being thrown. And then the answer is going to come and it says, verse that I read was, Nanu Saham Karasya. So Jiva is the one with with the I sense, kinchidnyasya, one with limited knowledge, whereas Ishvara is nirahamkarasya, free of the I sense. Sarvajnasya has all knowledge. Therefore, Tat Tvam Asi, by this statement, abheda buddhihi katam, how can they both be identical? And then the next verse answers. And what does the verse say? It says, it starts with iti, chet na stula sukshma sharira abhimani tvam. So I'll just explain this first and then we'll read it. So you, the word you, it has two meanings. There is the implied meaning and there is the direct meaning. The direct meaning is called, the literal meaning is called vachyartha. So this is if you take you literally, then we have all sorts of problems. And what's the literal meaning of you? Okay, look at this. Suppose I say to you, you are, did you know that? You are, and then all of these notions come into your mind. Oh, he's, has got so many ideas about me. Insecurities start to pour. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. 100 conclusions start to come now. Is that Ishvara? No way. That's literal meaning of you. So therefore, the immediate meaning of you is sthula sukshma sharira upadi. That means the literal meaning is just a physical body, a subtle body, and if you're a Vaidika, then you will think that you're neither the stula nor the sukshma, you're the karana sharira. So in the Vaidika, it means that they say, no, I am not the body mind, I am the causal body. And from the causal body, I always manifest into this world. This is another thing that we have in the scriptures. So it's not talking about you, the one with attributes, because a limited body can never be limitless. You can't ever put or compare a limited body to limitlessness. It's crazy. Therefore, there's no way that it can be the immediate meaning of you. It cannot be the immediate meaning. Therefore, you has to then be lakshyartha, which is the intended meaning. And what's the intended meaning of you? This is the Shuddham Chaitanya, the invariable consciousness, which is free from the three upadis. The invariable consciousness, which is free from the three upadis. That's the literal meaning when it says you are that. Similarly, when it says tat, so you, tvam is covered. Now, when it says tat, that means that. In other words, when it says that, it's referring to Ishvara, the cause of the universe. Again, we've got two meanings. We've got implied meaning and we've got intended meaning. The immediate meaning or the direct meaning is all knowledge, all capacity. That's the literal meaning of that, of Ishvara. So therefore, it's also an upadi from which depends on consciousness, which makes this world appear, and this jiva also conduct its transactions, makes everything possible from this one knowledge capacity. That's the literal meaning. Now, the intended meaning, the lakshyartha of Ishvara, is that which is free from the upadhi. And what is that? Again, Shuddham Chaitanya, pure consciousness. Suppose Ishvara were to come to the world. Just suppose. I know it's not going to happen, but suppose Ishvara were to take a form, a big form that you can sort of see, you can relate to it. And you say, hey, who are you? What's the first thing that comes out of Ishvara's mouth?
I am.
I am. And then Ishvara asks you, and of course Ishvara will know, but who are you? Oh, I am a jiva. Ishvara says, I am upadi, big upadi. Jiva says, I am small upadi. Therefore, upadi is there, no doubt. That has to be respected, and it cannot be equated in the level of upadi. There's no way I can be limitless knowledge as an upadi. But we both enjoy one and the same Shuddham Chaitanya, attributeless reality consciousness. So the idea here is, if you take the example of the wave and the ocean, of course there's a difference between a small wave and a big ocean. But at the level of the H2O, there is no difference whatsoever. In fact, at the level of the H2O, can you really say that wave is part of the ocean? If you're speaking from the standpoint of the H2O, think about this. If you are speaking from the level of H2O, can you say the wave is part of the ocean? What wave? What ocean? You understand? What wave? What ocean? There is only wave and ocean at the level of the wave. If you are through and through all things, what are you talking about? There's only one content. I'm unable to see anything else. There's only one truth. Therefore, to say I am part of Ishvara, also this has to be released, because it is coming from avidya upadi. It's coming from avidya, from ignorance. There was a time, once upon a time, I used to say, I am part of him. I'm just a small thing of him. It played its part. But at the new level of understanding, there's no space to say that, because it is just upadi. Upadi is upadi. Whether it's a big upadi, whether it's a small upadi, it's just a superimposition, just a projection of the one Maya. At the level of the H2O, who are you? At the level of the wave, who are you? Big difference, isn't there? At the level of the wave, who are you? At the level of the H2O, who are you? The whole thing changes. At the level of the H2O, I am this truth. I am the content of both the wave and the ocean. I am the truth of the Jiva and Ishvara. At the level of the wave, I'm just a small little thing, and Ishvara is a big thing, and I need to sort of propitiate Ishvara, which you can do. You can worship and have devotion. That's just fine. As long as I understand our truth is one and the same. So what the verses are communicating is this upadhi is to be recognized, and the truth of the upadhis, whether the big one or the small one, is always Shuddham Chaitanya, consciousness.
At the risk of sounding a bit pompous about this, I was just reflecting on our own body. And yeah, our bodies and some of the philosophies from the Kriya Yoga school, they talk about the spine being the expanse of the universe and various things. And I'm also thinking about the cells in our bodies, the cells that, keep the body functioning. And all the cells have got mitochondrials. And these mitochondrials are the power sources of the cells that do whatever it needs to do in terms of creating, in terms of protecting, in terms of, protecting, destroying, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, are these mitochondrials in the cells, little jivas or little beings within us, kind of like explaining like we are, who we are in terms of in relation to the cosmos, to the universe, is our, then this, to hear this, that, we and the Ishvara are no difference.
Yeah.
Or, I kind of reflected in our own bodies as well, that, we have our own we are our own little universe. We are the master of our little universe.
I understand. It's a great metaphor, isn't it? You don't have to even go that deep. You can just take your hand and you go, these fingers, right? They all seem separate from their own standpoint, but they all make up the one whole thing, right? They're not different from, from the hand, which is giving them their life support and giving them, their intelligence, right? They can move up and down, all because of this one being. But from their own standpoint, they seem individual, but they're not, because it's like, in chapter 7 verse, correct me, is it 8, where they talk about the beads and the thread, all right? The invisible thread that, see, all you can see is those beads, the forms, laws and orders. In fact, you can't really see the laws and orders, but you can infer they're there. So the beads are all sort of, they're there. We can see them at the cell. We can see them at a finger. We can see them bodies. The whole thing is just, beads, different beads. Suppose they're different beads. But what we cannot see is that invisible thread that is holding the whole thing together, allowing the thing to coordinate itself using a predictable cause-effect relationship without skipping a beat. So if you're one little bead there in that whole universe, then whatever you do, right, that thread is going to carry the vibrations of your movement, of your words, of your thinking. It's going to carry it to every single other bead around that necklace. So so in other words, you're influencing the whole universe because you're not apart from the universe. In fact, you make up the universe. Without you, the universe is incomplete. So what we cannot see is that intelligence, but it is there because we know that 5 years from now, my life will be a perfect reflection of all of the things that have happened from here until, right, 5 years from now. So there's a connecting thread that's connecting me to all of the people, to the kind of mind that you will have, to the kind of thoughts that you will have. The whole thing is connected by this invisible intelligence. And you cannot think of intelligence unless it exists. Intelligence exists. And you cannot think of intelligence unless it's in a presence of a conscious being, unless it is, infused with consciousness. Have you ever thought about knowledge? What is knowledge? What is intelligence? Because Ishvara is intelligence. It's not like a form, is it? This is a form. We can touch it, we can see it. But what is intelligence? We're not even talking about subtle orders like dharma. That's very subtle, isn't it? But it's there. So now intelligence is even subtler than dharma. What is intelligence?
But is intelligence, is Ishvara intelligence, the intelligence?
Yeah, so all intelligence is Ishvara. The whole thing is Ishvara. Ishvara is nothing but intelligence manifesting as different forms. Okay, so just like your dream is nothing but intelligence from your mind manifesting these forms, which are apparently solid and you cannot go through them. It seems like very real. You cannot go through a wall. But the whole thing is coming out of intelligence of your mind. Your mind is intelligent and it projects from this intelligence a real concrete world. So the world that is concrete and seemingly real, it's nothing but a manifestation of this one intelligence. But my question is, if you think about intelligence, what is intelligence? You can't objectify it because even my capacity to try to objectify is made possible by intelligence. But at the same time, you cannot think of intelligence outside consciousness. Can't be done. That's why we say the closest thing to consciousness is not space, but it's intelligence. Even subtler than space.
So is awareness a form of intelligence?
Awareness is the content of intelligence, free of intelligence, just like when you are dreaming, you, the conscious being, are free. All you're doing, all your job, the only job that consciousness does, if it were to have the job, even though it's not a job because it's just innocently shining, it just reveals whatever its own power, its own intelligence. Not that it has intelligence, but it has the capacity to manifest a universe through, and this capacity we say is total intelligence. So it's free of this intelligence. This intelligence has a dependent reality on this consciousness, but consciousness is not intelligence. Because if consciousness was intelligence, what would that mean? You would be constantly intelligent in all things. You would be constantly intelligent, even when you're not intelligent. In other words, you could not for a moment relax because you will be constantly contemplating things, how things work, what things are. You cannot get a break. So consciousness is from which intelligence arises, but consciousness is free of the whole thing. It is nirguna, without any attributes whatsoever.
So it's kind of like the body, right? The body has some sort of intelligence within it for us to function, right?
It has intelligence for us to function, which is borrowed intelligence from the total intelligence.
Yeah.
Again, just like if you're dreaming, the person that your mind projects, that person is just an expression of whose intelligence, of your mind's intelligence, and you are free of that mind, because you still are when your mind is not there. In your waking state, right, your mind can be thoughtless, but I still am. You can go into a nirvikalpa samadhi by the help of kriya yoga and have no division between, right, the subject, object, and the thought. There's no division whatsoever, but I still am. Otherwise, why would people go into nirvikalpa samadhi for 20 years trying to train that unless there is something there? Who's there? I am there. What is not there? Those upadis. The pramata upadi is not there. The prameya upadi is not there. The pramana upadi is not there. So I want to relieve myself from these upadis so that I alone am in nirvikalpa samadhi. I, who's this I? The one pure, as I say, pure consciousness, Shuddham Chaitanya. That's
so it's a form of communion.
A form of communion between what?
The big I and the intelligence.
Through the presence, by the presence of awareness, intelligence manifests. Intelligence has no reality apart from awareness. Awareness remains independent of what happens, what manifests, what unmanifests, and what happens in the world. So there's no communion. The awareness is completely free of the whole universe. From the standpoint of H2O, Big, is there any communion between the H2O, the water, and the wave? From the standpoint of the H2O. From the standpoint of the H2O, nothing is happening. From the standpoint of H2O, the whole thing is H2O. The moment you look at it from the standpoint of a wave or the ocean, now we're talking big upadi, small upadi.
Yeah, you said something very interesting earlier about at the level of the wave, who are you? I'm just a small thing and Ishvara is a big thing.
Yeah.
And we can worship Ishvara. And I was thinking about what you were sharing last week about the deities. So
Right.
if the truth of the wave and the ocean is the water, right? And the water is Shuddham Chaitanyam, the pure consciousness, then what is the role of invoking the power of deities like Vishnu and Shiva, Lakshmi, if we know that we are pure consciousness?
Sure. And even
what is the role of these traditions and beliefs in Vedanta?
See, until you understand the truth, there's two answers to this. Until you come to the truth, you need help, because the wave needs help and relationships to connect with the right people, to be guided to the right places by the help of other waves. And these other waves are all helping you in some way or the other to help you to navigate through this big marketplace of options. So you not only need help from people, and when I say people, I mean from the whole thing, because it's not like there are people and there's Ishvara. The whole thing is Ishvara manifesting as people. So I need help from people. And even after the knowledge takes place, you may still want to engage with these deities for personal reasons. You may still want to need a job or some security, or to learn some topic, or someone's still bothering you and you need to kind of have some reassurance. Hey, Ishwara, I need your help to take care of someone who's bothering me, or to give me a solution to a problem that the relative person cannot solve. So as Vic said, the communion doesn't really end at the level of the wave and the ocean. That communion is always there. As long as there's a body here, as long as there's a wave, I need Ishvara for my success. I need Ishvara to be, a healthy individual, to, have students, to have, to bring healthy people into my life, to have, getting along and have a clean mind. And sometimes things may still arise in us which are bothering you as a person, right? They're still bothering the person. So you need some help, to address that. So in that sense, you can invoke Ganesha. Hey, help me, give me some inspiration so that I can gain enough punya so that that punya can transfer itself in a form of removing this particular challenge that I'm experiencing in my life. So for that, I may invoke Ganesha. You may also want to deepen your knowledge, right? As a relative to your job, relative to having this knowledge even more ingrained in you because you just love the knowledge. So in that case, you can invoke Saraswati, or you may want to increase your willpower. I want to have that power of let's go, I can and I will. Give me that push, give me that motivation. In that case, I will invoke Durga. And so Durga can help with that also. So as long as there is an individual, even though you're free of the individual, as long as there is an individual, there is still a communion with Ishvara. There's still prayers to Ishvara. There's still, devotion to Ishvara because the person comes with certain inclinations to have relation. Ishvara is like your airbag. This is what Dayananda says. It's like when things are not going so well, I need someone around me that I can always relate. I need that intelligence that I can relate and fall back on and know, hey, Ishvara has my back. I don't have to worry. Nothing bad will happen to me because this order is unbiased and impartial. It never fails. And by me aligning and acknowledging these laws, nothing is bad going to happen tomorrow. And that gives you reassurance to live your life a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more devotional, and have something to fall back on when the times get tough. Right? So Ishvara becomes your, in whatever form you invoke Ishvara, becomes your best friend, becomes your, whoever you relate with, becomes someone that you still continue devoting until the last breath, until the last moment. Therefore, there's no such thing as going, oh, I'm consciousness, so why do I need these deities now? Because the person who's saying this is saying that in what kind of a state? A very healthy state. What happens when you get sick? You're probably not going to be saying that, right? You're going to be, oh, Ishvara, please help me. I feel like I'm dying. Therefore, rather than get to that place, rather let me invoke Ishvara so that he can help me to move in this life as long as I'm alive as a person in a smooth fashion, in the smoothest fashion as possible.
So, Andre, what I'm also understanding at this point is that we are like the beads joined together by this very thin string, which we don't realize is who we are. Without the string, the beads are not there really. All be scattered. So we are the beads connected to each other in our form, in our body form, yeah?
Absolutely true. And
but not constantly realizing we're only connected because of this Brahman and Ishvara. Ishvara.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, wonderful.
Is it what I'm understanding?
Wonderful, Rani. I'm really inspired by when you say that. It's, it's already right now, for example, you're connected to your fellow students, to your fellow classmates, you're connected to a teacher, and I'm connected to, the whole tradition, right? So the thread is already present, and the thread, because of that thread, you have you have found your way through this big marketplace of options, and this is where the thread has taken you. And that is not only through thread's grace, Ishvara's grace, but it's also done through your own self-effort. Through your self-effort has invoked the thread, certain aspects of this thread that connects all things. A little bit of, the knowledge thread, the discernment thread, the asking the right questions thread, the taking the courage to ask a question thread. You have invoked certain aspects of this one intelligence, which has made you change your orientations and guidance throughout the years, that today this is the result of that constant choosing and refinement, which is facilitated by this invisible intelligence. And therefore, that is why the continuation of worship continues, because even as a person, I am still entirely dependent upon the thread. As a person, all the while in the background, I understand that I'm totally free of the whole thing. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. So there's a two-way understanding. We also ask the question sometimes, what happens when something's not quite right in your life, right? And you want it to go away, you want it to be better. Do you look at your stories that you're telling yourself and try to reframe them in a helpful manner that's going to empower you to look in a different way, or bring some opportunity that you may have not thought of? Or do you just say, hey, this is a thought, no matter how bothersome, arising in my awareness, is just an upadi appearing in the total consciousness, and therefore it has no bearing on me? Which option do you go for? The smart way to answer is both. That's the smartest answer you can say, both. Because relative to some things in your life, dismissing it off as it's just an object of my awareness, it's not going to help you, because that thought is going to keep on coming on and on and on. And it's going to become a bothersome thought. It's just going to keep on rising and rising. They say, whatever I resist, it persists. Whatever I resist grows. So relative to some things, it's not a wise idea to brush it off as just an object of awareness. Relative to smaller things that don't have so much emotional bearing on you, they don't have so much of a consequence, you can gladly, say, hey, it's just, passing thought, upadi, and, it's gonna go away. So you have to now, exercise your viveka. What is the right approach? Both. Because we're not simple beings. We're not like, oh, it's all the same intensity. Some things have huge intensity in your life, and it's impossible to brush it off as awareness. Whereas something, in that case, you need to bring some relative help. Ganesha, for example. Hey, I need help, Ishwara. This is too much for my mind right now. I can't handle it. It's too much. In that case, invoke the deities. Other smaller things, easy. Hey, it's a thought. Leave it alone. It has no real bearing. It's going to pass. It's an object of awareness. Fair and square. So this means, again, it's not black or white. One has the right to choose what needs to be now so that I can live a smooth life. And that involves not dismissing anything, just seeing it. What can this do for me right now? And is it appropriate to be used right now? If not, what other options do I have? And if there's one option that you always have, it is that invisible thread, Ishwara, that fallback. That is why those, generally, if you ask, when I'm at home, I don't, you think, oh, Andre, you're kind of, logical and, intellectual and all this. Actually, when I'm by myself, 99% of my time is devotional. I'm a very devotional person. I have a constant relationship with Ishwara. At the same time, I understand our reality is not two. I don't, just philosophize these logics, and I only do this in class just to provide the pramana. Otherwise, as a normal person, the whole thing from A to Z, from 24 hours a day, is just devotion, constant communion with Ishwara. And that is your fallback. That is your security. Otherwise, what else is more permanent than that intelligence which has been guiding you since the beginningless time? In fact, there's one thing more permanent. It is, I know that I am, but what is more secure in this relative world than that intelligence? Nothing. Therefore, it is a devotional lifestyle. And in that devotional lifestyle, it is also a knowledgeable lifestyle, that I'm not a small person devoted to some big being, but our truth is exactly the same consciousness. So it's a two-way understanding. So that makes you a complete person, not one that's just into awareness and the other one's just into devotion. Next week, we will speak about who is a wise person and karmas. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.